We are currently in the middle of August and our Canadian weather is feeling a lot like fall weather, but it is also tomato tasting time. So I'm excited to share with you all of the varieties of tomatoes that I'm growing this year. Some I've grown before and I just love, and they will always be a staple in my garden. But there are a few that are new to me, and so I want to share all of them with you in case you haven't seen any of my other videos on tasting tomatoes. So let's get started. So the first tomato that I want to share with you is Gold Nugget. This is a new variety to me. I got these seeds from West Coast Seeds, which is a Canadian company. And so far, I really like this tomato. The plants that I've been growing this year are very healthy. They are very prolific in growing these tomatoes. I haven't noticed any of them splitting like the yellow pear that I grew for the past, I don't know, 6 to 8 years, which is why I switched, because I needed to grow a yellow cherry just to make my tomato bowl look pretty, to make, my sun-dried tomatoes look pretty. I needed a yellow one, and somebody had recommended this to me, and I'm really glad that they did. So let's see what it looks like inside. So I hope you can see that. Okay, so let's give it a try. So it tastes like most yellow tomatoes taste like. It has a very mild, mellow tomato taste. I like it. I would definitely walk through my garden and eat them off the plants. I wouldn't say that it would be my go-to cherry tomato if I was doing that, but I wouldn't shy away from eating them if I wanted to have a taste of a tomato in the garden. I know that I have other tomatoes growing that I'm gonna say, oh my gosh, I love these. And I just feel like this flavor it's okay. I will grow this again next year because I like the way it grows. I like that it doesn't split. I like the way it comes off the vine. I love how prolific and strong the plants are. And that to me is worth growing again. So the next tomato that I want to share with you is called Bantino. Now I brought 3 of them because I wanted to show you the differences. I don't know if I can show you this. The differences in sizes from one plant. And so I just wanted to kind of show you that. Most of them are nice and big like this. Some of them are a little bit smaller. I'm okay with that because when you have a smaller tomato and you're just making a single salad for your lunch, then you can use a small tomato. If you need a bigger one for a sandwich, then this would be the one that you would grab. So let's give the big one a try because I want to show you what it looks like inside. I hope you can see that. So let's give this one a try. Now I will tell you that last year I loved these ones. So much sweeter than Gold Nugget. The skin is tougher than the Gold Nugget. I'll say that it has a tougher skin than some of the other tomatoes that I've tried. I don't know if it's just that tomato. I'm just going to try another one because I just want to give you the right. This skin is softer than that one. So this one may have just ripened and this one is a little bit more ripe. So super sweet. The plants themselves. So let's talk about the plants for a second. They are not as healthy as Gold Nugget. So I'm looking at Gold Nugget as I squat here with you, and it is probably 9 feet tall. I know that Bantino is maybe 5 feet tall, and that's all of them. Some of them are even shorter than that. They are producing. They're producing enough that I would grow them again next year. I would also grow them again next year because the taste is amazing. I think that if you were looking for a more mellow paste tomato, this would be the one that you would get. So if you're not sure that you like a rich paste tomato for your sauces or your soups, then definitely try this one. Yeah, I'll definitely grow this one again because I really like the taste. One of my favorite ways to eat this one is slicing it up, putting it on a plate, putting a little bit of olive oil and a few spices. And then I just stick it on our dinner table with a fork, and whoever wants to have a couple slices with their dinner, it's there for them. And I just think it's amazing. Okay, so the next one that I want to try for you is Sun Gold. Before we try it, let's talk about the plants. So the plants are prolific. There are so many tomatoes on there that I can't even pick them all. There's so many on there. And it's tedious. It's so tedious picking these tiny little tomatoes that I end up walking away from it after I've picked 100 of them. And I must have harvested probably 5 times now. And every time I harvest, I say to myself, do not grow this one again next year. So the other thing about the Sun Golds is if you let them get too ripe on the plant, I don't know if too ripe is the right word. If you let them get ripe on the plant and you pull them off, they often split. So up here where that green stem is connected to it, it often splits. Now what that means for me is that I have to put those split ones into a separate basket, knowing that as soon as I get inside, I have to do something with them. Whether that is throw them in the dehydrator, throw them in the freezer, saute them up, cook them up, whatever I'm doing, I have to do it that day. And the reason that you have to do that is because bringing them inside once they've split, now you're going to get the fruit flies. You're also going to have them start going bad. They're now sitting in a bowl with good tomatoes and it's a mess. I won't grow this one again next year for those 2 reasons. I like that it is a prolific grower, but it's just a bit too tiny for me. I love cherry tomatoes, but again, even when I'm making sun-dried tomatoes, I feel like this one is just a bit too small. I cut my cherries in half and put them on the trays of the dehydrator, and I just feel like these shrivel up to nothing. Having said that, I am going to show you what it looks like inside, because just because I'm saying I won't grow them again doesn't mean that you may want to. You may have a reason for growing smaller tomatoes. I have about 50 plants here, and spending double the amount of time in one area on these little tiny ones when I can just go and pick a few bigger ones doesn't feel like I'm utilizing my time. So this looks like a regular cherry tomato. Super tasty. So I will say that they are super tasty. They're sweet. The skin isn't too tough. Obviously it's a little bit thinner than I would say the Bantino, hence the splitting when I pull them off the plants. It's a good tasting tomato. The 4th tomato I want to share with you today is Amy's Sugar Gem. And this is a salad tomato. So one of the things I'll tell you about this particular plant is that it is a little bit finicky. So I grew roughly 5 or 6 of these plant seedlings, and I knew that I wanted to put 3 of them in my garden. I only was able to plant 2 in the garden, so 2 out of 5 survived. The other 3 just weren't growing. And I know that the environment in my plant room was good because I had like 80 other tomato plants growing great. So they're a little bit harder to grow from my experience. The plant itself, so the 2 that I planted, only one of them really grew, and it only grew to about 3.5, 4 feet. But I will say that even though the plant was small, it did produce a lot of tomatoes. And none of the tomatoes have split that have grown on that plant. They come off a lot easier than some of the other ones. And I really like the size of them. These are a perfect size for sun-drying tomatoes or dicing it up and throwing it in a salad. So let's give this one a try. So again, I'll just show you the inside. You can see that, I wonder if, there we go. So you can see that it has a fairly thick skin layer around all of the seeds. So let's just give this a try. So, it has a really nice sweet flavor. In fairness, it's the only one that was close to being ripe. So it was a bit crunchy. I don't know if you could hear that. A little bit crunchy. The other tomatoes that I've harvested off of this plant have not been crunchy like that. Again, it was the only one that was close to being ripe, and I really wanted to share it with you. The 5th tomato that I want to share with you is black strawberry. Again, there are different sizes here, and I want to show you how pretty that one is. One of the things or traits that I've noticed about this particular tomato, and again, this one is new to me, is that these tomatoes, even when they're ripe, feel very firm. And I feel like these would probably be one of the last ones to go bad if you brought it into the house. The other thing about this tomato is that these are one of the longest to ripen. So I haven't gotten a whole lot of these tomatoes because they seem to take a long time to ripen. And I suspect that these will probably all ripen up come the end of August, early September. But let's just give them a taste. Okay, let's see. It's a little bit sour. Nothing like a strawberry. I think they call it black strawberry for the color. I like it. It leaves a little bit of a tang, or I'm gonna try another piece. Very juicy. When I'm biting into it, the juice is just kind of popping in my mouth. The skin is a little bit crunchy because I could hear it. I don't know if you could hear it. And these ones are ripe. So when I say that these tomatoes that I have harvested are firm, they're very firm. The 6th tomato that I want to share with you is red pear. Now, I have grown yellow pear, I've grown chocolate pear, and now I've grown red pear, and I really like them. I like how prolific they are. I like how easy they come off of the plants. I don't have to fight or pull. I just twist up and off they come. Super easy. Plants are healthy. I don't feel like these plants are getting a lot of disease or drying up from the sun. So to me already, it feels like a win. So let's just see what the inside looks like. You can see it. has a lot of juice, has a, I'm going to say medium on the scale of taste for a red tomato. It's leaving a nice taste in my mouth. I like the juice, and I liked the skin of it. I didn't feel like it was chewy. Yeah, I think I'll probably grow these ones again next year. So the 7th tomato that I want to share with you, again, is a new one to me. It is Queen of the Night, and I bought it for 2 reasons. 1, the name, and 2, the color of the tomato. So I'm going to see if you can see that. It's just beautiful. So the plants themselves are not very big. I'm going to say some of them only got about 4.5 feet tall. Some of them got to about 6 feet. They are prolific. The shorter plants, I am so surprised at how many tomatoes are on them and that they're not breaking. The branches aren't breaking, and they ripen up super quick. I have harvested so many of these off of the few plants that I have that I already know that I will definitely grow these again next year. So let's see what it looks like inside. There we go. So it's a pretty meaty tomato. There are some seeds, but I'm going to say that for I'm going to call this a slicer. It's bigger than a salad tomato. I will say that there are different sizes on the plant as well. These are probably, there's a few bigger ones, but there are mainly this size and then slightly smaller. And yeah, I think it's kind of pretty on the inside. Okay, so let's give it a try. It's a big piece. So the inside is very soft. It's not as juicy as some of the other ones because it's more meaty. The skin is a little bit more chewy, I'm gonna say. Like, I feel like it's stuck in my teeth. But I will definitely grow this again because I really like the flavor and I like the way it's growing. The 8th tomato is Juliet. If you've watched my tomato tasting videos in the past, you know that this is a staple in my garden, and I will always grow this. I have nothing but the best things to say about Juliet. Hugely prolific, and it just keeps producing and producing. The plants are probably the healthiest plants I have. They start ripening before anything else and continue throughout the whole summer. So this here is my favorite to grow in the garden. It's also my favorite because, or one of my favorites, because I love the shape of it. I slice them in half, and this is the size that I like to use for my sun-dried tomatoes. And again, it's prolific. Like, you grow a couple plants and you will be tomato rich. So let's give this one a try. So just to see the inside. It is sweeter than the other red tomatoes that I've tried. The skin is soft. It's not hard or chewy, crunchy, anything like that. It is just a really nice tomato to eat. What I will say about eating it in the garden though, it's probably not my favorite because it's bigger than, I feel like it's bigger than a cherry. It's bigger than the normal cherry size. So I don't normally munch on the Juliets in my garden, but for everything else, I really like having the Juliet. So the 9th tomato is a new one to me. It's called Prairie Fire. And I just wanted to show you what the coloring looks like. So this one is almost ripe. I don't know if you can see that very good. Let me see. Oh, okay, let me see if you can see this better. So this one here, I did a garden tour, maybe in July, I'm not sure. And I saw this hanging there and I thought, I'm gonna try it. And I think I might have said on that video that it was my new favorite tasting tomato. Okay, so let's take a look and see what it looks like inside. I don't know if you can see that good in this light. I'm slowly losing the light where I am. So, super sweet. I'm gonna say that the taste is similar to the Juliet. Now I have to try the Juliet again. Juliet's a bit sweeter. It's interesting, right? Like, depending on how you feel when you actually taste the tomatoes could change how that tomato tastes, as well as when you decide to pick it off the plants. And so I think I may have done my garden tour earlier in the afternoon. It's we're coming on to 6 p.m. now, so you know, and it's cooler here. Like I mentioned, we're having fall weather. So I do believe that it tasted a bit better to me in the heat in the middle of the summer. Having said that, I'm not 100% sure if I will grow this again. I like the taste. I don't feel like it's very prolific. I feel like the plants that I'm growing, and I'm growing them in 3 different locations in my garden, and I feel like they're all kind of not doing great. They're growing tomatoes, but they're not producing like the Juliets, like the Queen of the Night, like the Bantino, like all of them. They're probably one of my least favorites for producing. So I'm not sure that I will give up space for this tomato again next year. Maybe. The 10th tomato that I want to share with you has been a staple in my garden for many years, and it is the chocolate cherry. I love this tomato. What I will say is that this year it is not producing as heavily as it should, and it's cracking. These tomatoes are cracking. I don't know if it has anything to do with the fact that I'm using seeds that are older, if it's the location. I don't know, but my other tomatoes are not cracking like this. Like, I just went over to the plants to grab a couple of them, and I think I saw a handful of tomatoes that were ripe, and they were all cracked. This was probably one of the few that wasn't. Having said that, this is also a late, it ripens later in the season. And I don't know that I noticed that last time. So I think next year I'm going to try one more time, because this is one of my favorite tomatoes. I'm going to give it space somewhere else in the garden to see if it does a little bit better. See if that helps, and then make my decision next year, because if I get another year of splitting, then I'm not going to give space to my garden to this tomato. So let's take a look on the inside. Oh. It's so yummy though. I'm not ready to say goodbye to chocolate cherry. The 11th tomato I want to share with you is chocolate pear. So very similar to red pear. These come off the plant easy. They're big producers. I love the size of them. They look very pretty when you slice them down the middle and throw them in your salads. Really like these ones. So let me show you the inside. So there's a good amount of seeds and yeah, good amount of seeds in there. Tons of juice. Tons of juice, not a lot of flesh. So I feel like when you're biting, you're getting pops of that juice, which is delicious. The skin is not tough. It's not chewy. It's not crunchy. It's fairly soft. Really pleasant to eat. The 12th tomato that I want to share with you today is Big Rainbow. Now, it says Big Rainbow on the package, but I would say that this is probably a medium-sized one. There are a few bigger than this and a few smaller than this, but this is probably the average size. So the plants, I'm going to say that these took a long time to ripen up. But when I went over there to grab one, I'm going to say that probably 60% of the ones that are over there right now are ripe and ready to be harvested and brought in. So it was like overnight, all of a sudden, the tomatoes ripened up real quick. And the weird thing about it is that where these tomatoes are, they actually face south. So they get the east and the west sun. And so I thought it very interesting that these ones took a long time to ripen up. Now let's take a look at what it looks like inside. Okay. Look at that. There's not a lot of seeds in there. There's not a lot of seeds in there at all. It's quite beautiful, in fact. I really like that. I really like the flesh. There's a lot of meat to this tomato, not a lot of seeds. You would think that it may not be a tasty tomato because of that, but it's really, really tasty. I would say that I actually like the flavor of that one better than the Fire Prairie. And you can probably do more with it because it's so meaty. So this next tomato, number 13, is brown sugar. Brown sugar was the first tomato in my garden to ripen up, even before the Juliets. It was the very first one. And I was shocked because the one that ripened up was bigger than this one. And I remember saying to my husband, look at that. All the other plants have tomatoes on them, but the one that has one of the biggest ripened first. And I found that to be very interesting. And I have really enjoyed how prolific this tomato is. None of them have had any disease on them. None of them have been splitting. They've been these perfectly round tomatoes that have this greenish brown on the top and this really pretty orange on the bottom. And if I was just growing tomatoes for the health of the plants as well as how many tomatoes they produce, I would definitely grow this one again. Okay, look at how pretty this one is. I wonder if can you see that? Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. I wasn't expecting it to be so green and red on the inside. I've cut this open already, but I'm not sure that I cut it open like this to actually see the inside of it. So let's take a taste. There's a lot of juice. I think these two tomatoes, Big Rainbow and Brown Sugar, would make a perfect tomato sandwich. They would complement each other so nicely. So this one has lots of nice juice in it. The skin is a little bit thicker. It adds a little bit of meat to the tomato. I really like it, and I will definitely grow this one again next year. So the last tomato I want to share with you is orange cherry. Orange cherry is a staple in my garden. I love it. I love it so much that when I'm cutting into the tomatoes to process them, I love cutting this one. The skin is nice and thin. They never split. Plants are prolific. I'm constantly having to come out and pick them, and I think, okay, I've gotten them all, and then a couple days later there's a ton more that have ripened up. It's an amazing grower. So let's take a look inside. Hoping that you can see it and you're not getting a lot of shade. It almost tastes like a red tomato to me. Not as tart and I'm going to say tomatoey, because when you start going down in color, sometimes you lose some of the taste. So, for example, a red tomato will have a lot more taste than, say, a yellow one normally. And so orange tomatoes kind of fall in between, and I would say that this one has a lot of flavor. So couple that with the fact that it is a high producer, healthy plants, they don't split, they're easy to harvest, you need to grow this one. So hopefully I've shared with you some tomato varieties that you haven't grown yet, and I've explained it well enough that you might want to try them. Thanks so much for spending your time with me.